one. Jim Joyce, happy Wednesday. Man. Good to see you, brother.
Stateside?
Yes, we're in Strong Island, actually nice. In my brother-in-law's house, and just lots of family time, but also kind of heading in there, here and there, and then flying back to Barcelona Saturday already. So just pretty quick visit. Was hoping to catch you in Boston tomorrow, but unfortunately, things are kind of up in the air. So
right.
What's happening there?
Yeah, so I suppose where Health Beacon is we're doing our inaugural HB Vision event. So Health Beacon is going to collect, we were hoping to get you there, but some of the most exciting people, patients, investors in healthcare, stakeholders, customers, clients, pharma companies, researchers. We're bringing them to a beautiful venue in downtown Boston. And people are going to be sharing their vision of digital health technology. And then Health Beacon is going to be outlining our vision of where we see our technology going. So we're going to release a new product details tomorrow. So super
exciting. Juicy. I'm still waiting for that turtleneck, the picture of you in a turtleneck.
I've got something pretty epically for the unveiling. I've got something pretty epically planned if it works out.
Man.
Well, it'll be Instagrammable.
I was gonna say I hope somebody Instagrams it, but well, listen, so looking forward to hearing more. Unfortunately, I can't be there and spread my thoughts on the vision. But you and I do this every Wednesday with the guest, and this week, let's let a guest in. As a matter of fact, as we were kind of catching up a bit, Omri and I were like, "You haven't been on the shot? I feel like you have." So we have Omri Shor, CEO and founder of Medisafe. We've known this guy for like a decade now, I think, something like that, something crazy like that. Welcome.
Before we let you talk, Omri, I have to say, like, I every time I hear Omri, he's one of my favorite people, one of the OGs of digital healthcare, one of my favorite people in digital health. So
I'm very
start
flattered.
that.
I'm very flattered, but same goes for you guys. I feel, the aura of the giants here.
Well, listen, welcome to the shot. I think as I was letting you in, I was just saying, like, I feel like you were on, or like should have been on, but you haven't, and so we figured we'd actually pick, and we'll talk more about it. It's crazy the fact that you're celebrating 10 years, but before we get there, maybe for our millions of viewers, listeners, kind of take us a little bit through your journey.
Who is Omri Shor?
Yeah, who is Omri?
Yeah, so me, I'm Israeli born and raised. I live in Boston, and prior to Medisafe, I did a bunch of roles in software and sales and marketing and those type of stuff. And about 10 years ago, a bit more than 10 years ago, we had a personal experience. My father, who's diabetic and hypertensive, accidentally overdosed on his medications. And since we have a bit more time today, the story was that we were barbecuing at his house, and he asked me if I've seen him inject his insulin. And I gave him the Israeli answer. Both of you have worked with Israelis, so you know the Israeli answer is no. So I said no. I meant no, I haven't seen you. And he understood that as no, you haven't injected.
Oh, wow.
So we injected the dose of insulin, his sugar levels dropped to 38. And that was close. So we decided to solve it for him and many others like him. And 10 years passed, and we've solved the medication management challenges for more than 10 million registered users.
Wow.
On Medisafe up until now. So that was the beginning of the journey. By the way, I went through my Facebook to find out when was the first time that I met Jim.
Right.
All right. Drum roll.
Let's see if you can see this one.
Oh, totally. When you won the award in California.
2013. And
Yeah.
that's when I met you together with your sidekick, Marty. Big
Who's on
shout
his
out.
way. Yeah.
HealthXL, big shout out.
No, I remember it
Wow.
well. I remember the pitch. The pitch was great. The data was kind of bursting out of your computer at the time. You had your little, the demonstration of all the people using the system. It was tight. It was tight. You deserved that statue. What did we give you? What's the name of that statue? It was the it was
It's
called the
kind of a statue for acupuncture and where
yeah,
to stick needles.
right. Yeah, it was called the Healthies or something, right? The Healthies.
Something like that.
Was that the HealthXL Healthies? I
Yeah,
vaguely
exactly.
remember that. Yeah, that's right. The
Right.
HealthXL Healthies. That's
yeah, it was our Grammys. It was at the Healthies, right? And then what's funny with that little statue is that, your man is like on the statue and there's kind of a little like pole that's kind of sticking up his backside in the system. It's a very anatomically correct system. I remember it falling apart in one of our presentations, and we had to kind of put it back together on stage.
but
yes,
but it all worked, right? And just kind of reflecting, and not everyone, but I think the beauty of the health and care industry and the founders and entrepreneurs, that many have the personal stories, right? That it just driven by family events, friends events, and things in kind of our daily life, right? And so kind of taking that, let's call it barbecue experience of you saying no, right, and turning it into 10 million people on medication management. It's insane. So kudos. What was and I guess I know you kind of like honestly skipped over. I actually want to go back a little bit, because you said something like software and this that, like you just sort of like erase the rest of your life, right? But like or very quickly, maybe just like a little bit more for the
like
listeners and
a
viewers to
kibbutz?
get to know you.
Was it we're on a kibbutz? Yeah.
Yes, no kibbutz, but yeah, I'm Israeli born and raised, grew up in Haifa, and which is the northern side of Israel. Yeah. And like most Israelis, went to the army, did a very significant army service, and after that, I did my first visit in the U.S., which was a summer camp counselor.
Okay.
I had for one summer, and then did the usual Israeli thing, which was a trip to South America for about 4 or 5 months. And I came back, and eventually during my bachelor's, I ended up working for a company. That company was called Legal. It was a law firm management software.
Okay.
And I was employee number 1 after the founders. So it's a very boring business.
Right.
But if you know how to work the system correctly, it can be very, very profitable. So what we did was we started with billing, and from billing, we evolved and created a really good small firm software package. Joined the company. The founders called me, and they said, we have 8 offices, and we think there might be a business here that we want to go and explore. So I explored, and 3 years after, we had 2,000. So that was a very nice story.
Wow.
And it was good to see it from somewhat ground up, right? I mean, to your point, you were the first employee outside of the founders, and so lots of different hats and switching hats, right? So probably
that then came into fruition with Medisafe, right? The early days where you're switching one moment your sales, one moment your marketing, one moment your product, and then 5 minutes after, you're in front of investors and pitching the story.
What's your favorite part of all that?
I really enjoyed business development and sales situations where you're listening to a client, you're trying to identify the true pain points and how to motivate them to move forward with all sorts of things. So this is
right. But you, in some ways, there's a lot of parallels, like when you're to kind of creating healthcare products where you're trying to get in, you're looking at someone that you have to be like, the empathy has to be so high in the healthcare space, right? Like it's not transactional, that when you're in those biz dev environments.
Absolutely. And we always start every meeting with, I personally start with the founding story of Medisafe for people to understand that this is not, this is not transactional. This is personal, personal story.
Yeah. And when you think of that story, like, and you think about this, because now after having served so many other patients since then, is there like another story, like, that's such a great foundational story, but it's, it's like anything, it's like the, the Herculean story, or is there some other story that kind of like, that's also kind of come into your psyche, or that you've kind of been aware of? I'm probably other than loads.
Within 10 million patients, the stories that we hear from patients are just unbelievable. The other day, I wrote our 10 years anniversary post.
Okay.
And I chose one specific story. So the story is a patient. She went out of generally she's healthy. She had a healthcare episode. She went to the physician, got a bunch of meds. And then the doctor remotely looked at her blood works and said, hey, something doesn't look right here. I'm going to prescribe one more medicine on top of everything else. Sent her husband to CVS to pick it up. Husband came back home, and she enters the medicine into her Medisafe.
Right.
And Medisafe pops an alarm, says, do not take that before you consult with a healthcare professional. We identify a major interaction. She called it a red alert. We actually have the colors. So we have yellow, orange, and red. Red alert is the most serious one.
Yeah.
And she calls the pharmacist and he says, did you take the med? And she says, not yet.
Yeah.
Can you please drop it by CVS once again and we'll find another option? When she came back to CVS, she said that the pharmacist told her that had she taken it, she would have stopped breathing in the middle of the night.
Wow.
Wow.
And it slipped through the cracks of doctor, the pharmacist, the prescribing system, the EMR, and so on and so forth. Stop at the patient level. So, these stories are really what motivates me and my team to wake up every morning and plow on.
Well, and we've been talking, right? Like navigating the healthcare system. Ultimately, you as the individual is responsible for your own health, right? Yes, you rely on experts through it, but again, when you have 6 to 8 minutes with a doctor, right, and pharmacists are processing scripts, highly in an automated fashion, again, and so tools like yours absolutely empower, and I know many use that term very sort of like broadly, but truly do. And I'm actually curious. I mean, we've had a lot of discussions around different go-to-market strategies for digital health companies, right? B2B to C, but also, I mean, you guys started kind of B2C, right? And over time went to B2B. But maybe just tell us a little bit of that journey, right? I mean, from the day you won that award and kind of released the Medisafe, the Healthies, right? and what you've learned through that process, right? And again, time change also, and the ecosystem changes and environment changes, but just curious on that journey.
Great question. So the picture was, I think, dated 2013. So around that time, we started talking to the industry, and the understanding was that if we want to work with the industry, we have to show them that we're better than everything that they can go and develop, because otherwise they'll just go and develop it themselves.
Right.
So we took a pretty daring approach, and we said, well, first build a really good product for patients. And when we see that it works, we're going to flip the switch and move to the next step. We were pretty fortunate to have a bunch of investors that believed that you need to build and then you can go and monetize it. So that was what we did back in the days. So for the first 2 or 3 years, it was all about building the best product for the industry. In 2015, we raised our Series A, and I packed my dear wife, 2 kids, 9 suitcases, and moved to the US.
Only 9 suitcases? That's pretty amazing.
9 suitcases. I left everything behind, 9 suitcases with stuff.
We came
moved to
for
the
a week here, the family of 4, and we have 9 suitcases now.
Back then, I had another person join the team, and we said, hey, let's do A/B testing, because we don't really know where in healthcare this concept of putting the right tools in patients' hands to empower their healthcare journeys, where is it going to work? So I took more on the PBM and payer side, and he took the pharma side.
Okay.
And he was the one that succeeded more than me.
Right.
I tried to hire better people than myself. I succeeded with this one. And we brought a couple of early pharma deals and early pharma partnerships. And they were interested to see if we can help them improve the patient engagement, optimize the patient journey, improve, as a result of that, adherence and persistence. So that worked, and the rest is history.
Right.
So let's and I'm sure you two for sure also can share stories kind of on the other side, right? I mean, if we can kind of double click on, pharma relationships, right? And I always joke around, I have tire marks in my back, but it's and I enjoyed every moment, but being an entrepreneur, trying to sell to big pharma and navigating, again, the choice of that as a channel, and to your point, the pharma being the quote unquote the success factor for Medisafe, right? So
right.
Just curious on that journey and how you've navigated, or both of you guys, or either. But Omri is the
Jim,
guest.
You want to take it?
No, you're the guest. I've said the thing I'll tee you up for as you take it is I have spent so much time. I consider myself a recovering pharmaceutical executive. So I've spent so much time thinking about that equation that everyone's pints would go flat if I started talking about it. But I actually did and I'll share it with you, Omri. I did a 10-point blog post on how to talk to pharma, and that was like from what I, and I've only shared it with a few people. I must have shared it with you. I'm definitely Martin Kelly, but it was like how they think and what's going on. Cause they're it's special organizations, isn't it? So I'll tee you up, Omri. What's the secret? What's the secret?
So I think that first of all, we need to approach it with a very strong conviction. And when you look at the value chain from, every $100 of pharma expenditure that patient pays, eventually, if you follow the money trail, most of it is eventually being left at the pharma company's hands, right? And there is a really nice chart that analyzes that. So I want to say probably 15 to 20% ends up in pharma.
Okay.
So if you say, hey, if I, as Medisafe, we can improve the patient experience, optimize the journey, and as a result of that, we improve adherence and persistence, that's money. That majority of that money eventually stays with the pharma company.
Right.
I think that you need very strong conviction of why should they work with you. And I personally matured from a company that historically talked mostly patient journey and optimizing and engagement and so on, to really talking about the hard ROI that you can drive. And the value that we bring is just superb. So we have a partner now, an injectable drug, $3,200 a month WAC.
Wow.
And on a study, we were able to show that we increase persistency, Medisafe versus non-Medisafe patients, increase persistency by 1 additional month. That's $3,200 per patient. We now have 30,000 patients. That's $100 million in value.
Right.
So this is an equation that the moment that you figure out the equation, it really starts making sense from a commercial perspective.
Yeah, that's powerful. It's really powerful. Yeah, I think I always find what's fascinating, kind of like I said, having been one is, like I start from the standpoint of I think about the we call it the product insert sheet, like the SPC, the summary product characteristics, that every medicine ends up with this, 7-8 page, sometimes 12 page, 20 page document that describes, the clinical trials, the route of administration, the side effects, the use cases, all this stuff there. And it's kind of like it's the holy Bible inside pharma, right? And I always say, I said, like with me, is that when I'm talking to my team, I'm saying you want to be inside the SPC, not outside the SPC, right? Yeah. So I think about it that way, that it's kind of like, and then the whole system is set up to administer against that. Or if they go outside of that, there's very clear rules of like how they govern around that. But this whole regulatory infrastructure, the government, the doctors, the pharmacists, and the pharmaceutical companies are all working. That's what kind of joins them together, is these characteristics, and so if I say something that's off label, that's outside of that, then that, everyone's very concerned about that. If I use it in indication, or if I want to know how's it administered and what's going on, or what's the basis of efficacy claims, or what kind of outcomes you're looking for, it's all kind of there. That's always been, I mean, it's kind of like in some ways, it's the secret that's in plain sight, in some ways, of how they think.
I tore this page out of your book. Send me the rest of the book, please.
Absolutely.
The 10 points, the 1-pager, and then the rest of the book. There you go, Jim. So when is the book coming out? And I think Omri gets the first copy.
But timelines is like, how do you manage? So you always struck me as someone that's on the move. That you said, like, conviction, kind of going at it, like, the hustle. And how do you manage yourself in terms of thinking about the timelines, or thinking about your, maintaining your natural sense of urgency, say, versus an organization that's going to be quite conservative about decision making?
Yeah, this is really always been a challenge, right? Because you're working against organizations, with organizations, to change their thinking as to why should they do something today, where the inertia is all about not making a decision. And in many cases, I think that the industry have changed, and I want to say that something unique happened in 2020, COVID, right? And as a result of this thing, and the reason probably that we're not in person, but we're on Zoom, and it feels very natural, the pharma industry understood that they can no longer only rely on the old world, and they need to get into a new world. So I think that a lot of the changes that we're seeing in the industry are all a result of that unfortunate COVID event.
I would also add to it, so absolutely right. I think it sprung everything from the sales process to remote trials, right? Decentralized remote patient monitoring. I mean, across the board, right? It just sprung everything there. But I would also say, I think in that time frame, I would say 3 to 4 years, some of the younger companies at the time, right, like yourself, have grown up. You've gotten more funding, you've expanded, you've hired from the industry, but there's also rotation back into the pharma, haven't experienced the entrepreneurial spirit and so I think there's a lot more. If I rewind back, let's call it 6-7 years ago, it would be, well, it's the pharma companies and it's the tech entrepreneurs, right? And I think there's been probably not enough still, but I think there's been some level of rotation. I don't know. I just thought of it now because I've seen some LinkedIn updates on, well, to pharma and then from pharma and then back to, so
that's fascinating. What do you think? Has that happened to you, Omri? Has people joined Medisafe and then gone back into pharma?
So we have folks that joined us. We have a VP who came from Pfizer. Yep. And we do have a couple of our team members that ended up in pharma. So I have a partner success executive that worked for us and now works for Biogen. So we do see those movements back and forth. I think that it's general maturity of technology, and seeing maturity in other businesses that moved much faster and in different trajectory. For instance, when was the last time that you called your bank. Like I do
Right.
everything on my phone.
Right.
When was the last time that you called Eugene? You book a lot of flights. I go on the United app and book the flight. I don't have an agent anymore. But in healthcare, for instance, in specialty services, you have the hub businesses, and they have nurses in cubicles that are supposed to give service to patients.
Right.
One of our clients, they have a co-pay process that once a year they need to do a benefit re-verification of the patients. So the nurses send a form for the patient to fill, and they need to send it back to them with their W-2s using the sophisticated technology of fax.
I was gonna say the fax machine. Yeah,
You're kidding.
Guys, this is 2021 when we deployed it. We said this doesn't make sense. So today that same nurse says, go into your Medisafe. I just sent you a notification. You open it up, you fill it up inside Medisafe, snap a picture of your
W2.
of your W2, and it goes back to the nurse. A process that used to take 3 weeks is now 5 minutes.
Right.
So the nurse likes it, the patient loves it. It's great for the pharma company. It's kind of everyone's winning from this advancement in technology. So how can we do it systematically in other areas of healthcare?
Yeah. Listen, we all, again, right, kind of rewinding back into the OG days a bit. It's like, well, in everyday life, we're used to certain things just happening on demand. And so this is a perfect example that some of this is trickling back into the healthcare system. I still think we have a long way to go, but it's I just used that line the other day, slow progress is still progress, right? Like at least it's not regressing back to a certain extent. So
what do you think? So I just came off of 3 days of retirement in Orlando, Florida. So I was visiting my parents live in in Cocoa, Florida, and unfortunately my father had a little bit of a fall. He's fine, but I went down to just spend some days with them. And during the time, Omri, I was implemented live course cardio mobile. An Omicron blood pressure system. Obviously, my mom's a diabetic, so she has the Health Beacon device that's sitting in there. I bought them one of these little massage kits, to get mobility for their legs, because if he wasn't going to be moving, I put the new Amazon Echo Show, and I put it all in like a bookcase, and I just kitted out the house, and they absolutely loved it. They were beyond it. They're totally overwhelmed, But what strikes me is
do you have a second job at Geek Squad for health?
I'm dying to get one. I love it. But what I was just what was striking me is all these systems are competing to be the system, right? So what's your, obviously we have our, we're trying to all build our own companies here, but what's your, how do you think that plays out, Omri? In terms of, take I love the guys from AliveCore. They want to be, the consolidator of your activity on your Apple Health Kit, right? Or your, everyone's kind of nuzzling for this, top dog seat here, and including insurance companies, including, how do you think that plays out?
So I would go back to the consumer side. And if you want to be embedded into the patient's life, right? You need to understand what's the most retentive action that they're doing and connect to that. We were very fortunate back then, because if you think about it, I see my doctor once a year. Most people see them 3 or 4 times a year, right? So that's not very retentive. And I have other health habits. I work out every day. So this is one thing. Most patients do it, twice or 3 times a week. I eat healthy,
unfortunately.
But if you're a patient, in most cases, you're going to take your medications, and that's one thing that you're going to do every day, if not twice or 3 times a day. And if you're going to miss, there's going to be a big issue. So maybe just opening brackets just for a second. So medication mismanagement. I'm going to tear another page of your book. Medication mismanagement, huge problem. Like my father, 700,000 people a year suffer an emergency. unlike my father, 125,000 Americans a year die due to mismanagement of medications. Pharma companies, due to lack of persistency or picking up the prescription, will lose potential income of $189 billion a year. That's billion with a B. And the healthcare system in the US as a whole will lose 290 to $300 billion a year. So, there are big numbers that are associated with that. So I'm very much fine with focusing on this one problem,
Right.
and really supporting patients around this point of the healthcare journey.
Right,
And
because it's so
integrate
important.
with others,
Right.
integrate with the insurer, integrate with every other activity app, and
Right.
I think that's the power of technology.
I mean, look, it's been said, right? Everybody wants to be the front door to health, right? And understand that consumer. And again, we don't have enough time to debate who will win, or I think there will be multiple. But I think, I don't know, Maureen and I always say, like, every entrepreneur, every company needs to do what they do best, right? And again, healthcare is just too closed of a system. And I think it's partnering up where you feel you have the strength. And then there's opportunities to continue partnering through this process with companies that do best what they do, right? And again, I think the challenge with it is that you brought up is that there will be different experiences, but it doesn't mean to be. I might have a preference one way and another person have another one. Should have to have that flexibility, right? We're just not there yet as a system. And to your point, lastly, there's a lot of companies that lead with engineering, which is awesome on one side, but that also gives that you want to be able to build everything yourself and not have an open system, right? We have an
That's
hour.
Awesome.
I'll stop. I'll pause. So let's fast forward. You guys celebrating, when was the actual anniversary? 10 years, right? I mean, first of all, a decade. How much hair did you lose? I don't know. So congrats, first of all, 10 years. Woohoo.
So how much hair did I lose? Here's the answer. So I think that I actually gained a bit of weight.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous.
I definitely lost a bit of weight, but at least one thing to be proud of. But the date was August 14th. That was the date that we said, okay, we're going to go live with an app. We need to have a company that stands between us and patients.
Right.
So that was the day that Medisafe Ltd. Back then in Israel was founded. And this is a whole month of celebration. So tomorrow, we're going to take the entire Medisafe team for a 2-day of a trip with a lot of surprises that I can't tell you. But
no. and if we were actually produced show that would take 2 weeks or something to publish, I think it would be okay. But given that this will be up in the next hour, meticulously unproduced, then we'll hold it. Not to ruin the surprise for the team, but
yeah, that's awesome.
So, but a bunch of really cool achievements. So we have a nice infographics that team produced. So we have, I'm reading from my screen, 800 million patient journey engagements, 4 billion reminders created.
Wow.
90% reported program adherence. That's when we work with a pharma company. 35 million medications added on Medisafe. 1 million appointments scheduled on top of Medisafe. And, the last mile is with patients. So 4.6 out of 5 stars app rating after 10 years. Very exciting.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
So kudos, decade.
Yeah.
Damn. Now, you talked about, sorry to jump a little bit on this, but your brother's a co-founder. Where you trying to get him over here? But
let's see if we're fortunate. But yeah, I founded the company with my brother, and essentially, I'm focused on the US side and go-to-market, sales, marketing, business development, finance, and I'm also working with the investors. And this dude here is in charge of everything else. So he's really onto product, R&D, data.
Right.
Awesome.
Okay. Awesome.
And
awesome.
you know, it's funny, every time we talk to, well, not every time, it only happened twice out of the many discussions with investors. We always get asked, Marina and I, you know, we kind of sit across from each other. And, you know, the other day somebody asked, like, are you brother and sister? And we're like, oh, first of all, but why would you lead with that? But, you know, I'm just curious, like the journey from the early days and kind of, you know, quote unquote, a family business. So maybe something that you can share, or Marina and I can take pointers, at least with family, granted.
Yeah, we're so I try to create a very clear separation between that. And, you know, he's a member of the team, such as myself, and we work together. When investors back in the days, so on our seed round, one of the lead investors actually discounted the company on that.
Wow.
And you know, that was early in the days. But since then, we've shown to people that that the very strong alignment between founders and the trust that we have between founders is
Everything.
critical, right?
Yeah.
It's, you know, I've seen so many companies, especially after 10 years, that one of the founders, you know, just can just go home and leave the business.
Right.
And and for us, you know, what is he going to do on Shabbat dinner?
Right.
So we're gonna meet each other at some point in time. So I think that level of alignment is actually benefiting the business if you know how to create the clear separation, right? So in our team, I'm always bothered when folks say, "Hey, I heard your brother is coming to the US." Yeah, he's my brother, but for this conversation that we're having here, he happens to be the CTO of the company.
Right. Yep. Right. Right.
It's funny.
We've had a few, right? We've had a few family, because you know, you have yourself, Eugene, and who else? We had someone else on.
We have Daniel from Ada, right, with Claire, their husband and wife. So pointers, but you know, it's interesting what you said, Omri. I mean, our answer is, you know, the number one thing between founders is trust, right? And we've raised two girls, 18 and 20, and this is our third baby. And Marina jokes around that maybe we'll do much better with this third baby than the first two from that perspective, even though they're two amazing girls. And, you know, trust is everything. And it's like, we're kind of like, well, I don't know how that actually matters, right? We're co-founders and we're driving, we have very different skills, and therefore it's complementary. So anyway, just was curious on a little bit of your journey there. One other thing I noticed, you're doing a triathlon. Like, tell us the habit story of, right? Like, you've done a triathlon, if I'm not mistaken. You're, you know, running all the time.
I think I feel like you're doing it once a week.
A triathlon.
So back when I started Medisafe, I found a really interesting coincidence. Every day I went to the gym or I ran out in the morning, my day was bearable. And every day that I didn't work out in the morning, my entire day was shit. And I said, well, look at that. I now have data of a month or a couple of months of working with a startup, and I have bright days and I have rainy days, and all the rainy days happen to be on the days that I don't work out. Started running, and but I'm not a light dude, okay? So for not light dudes to run a lot, that takes a toll on your knees. So at some point in time, I felt that everyday running is a bit crazy. And when I was 12 years old, I was a cyclist in the Haifa competitive team. So I said, okay, let's get myself bike and start with that. So I started biking, one day running. And I felt like my upper body became so weak. So then I decided that I'm going to swim. And what do you do that is swim, bike, and run? Oh, that's a triathlon. So
awesome.
So I started with sprint triathlons, I want to say 2016.
Right.
moved to Olympic 2017, and then 2018 I did half Ironman.
Okay.
Wow.
I did the stupidity of just signing up for a full Ironman, which I'm going to do on August 21st of 2023.
That's awesome.
Are you going to actually train for it further? Like
I started.
Well, so you
That's
okay?
awesome.
We did years ago. Marina and I, we did the Tough Mudder, and I remember I just flew in from Amsterdam, literally I think that morning or the night before, and it was just
Right.
not like between the jet lag and everything else, it was a nightmare for me. But finished it. So
Yeah.
I mean, man, kudos. I think building those habits also is just so important. We ready to shine. I think today was day 241 of 3.5 kilometers every day, Marina and I. So we're trying to running every morning, no matter. Like yesterday was like raining here, and we just still got up and went. So
well, my thing is I dip in the Irish Sea once a week. Ooh. That's cold. It's cold. Nice. And so we float for like 10 minutes in the sea. Nice little it's freezing cold.
That's pretty impressive though. I think
with Mardo's there. Yeah. We do it like we'll do 20 minutes and then we go for like a 2-hour coffee.
To warm up, right?
Cool.
Anyway, should we get to your final question, Jim? And if Rotem is around, if not, we'll just have to have him on another separate episode when you guys are maybe 11 years or 10 and a half. I don't know.
Okay. So
before that, I have a cool announcement that happened this morning.
What's that?
All right.
We just shot a press release for today that Medisafe just obtained actually on Sunday ISO 1345, which is the ISO for a medical device. So that kind of puts Medisafe for the first time as a true player in healthcare.
Awesome.
And we're very excited about that. And you guys can probably, as professionals, draw the line from here to where is it going.
Yeah.
But we're very excited about this additional strategy that we're playing it.
That's awesome. And with this
it's not an easy process, so kudos.
Not an easy process. No, I think that's fantastic. Congrats, man.
And
heard it here first, or what?
Right.
Aside from the press release that went out to 300 million people, but
That's awesome. Congrats, man.
Congrats. Man.
That's great news. And there's lovely. It's a lovely, kind of sophisticated, defensible. So super exciting, Omri. So
awesome.
So you're with your lovely family and you're touring through South America, remembering the days that you did it for 4 months after university, Omri. So you go with me. So as a thought experiment, and you're sitting in a cafe in Buenos Aires, and you're looking over, and this young kind of Israeli, you can obviously, you hear him speaking and you recognize him Israeli, and he's a young kind of guy that's just started doing triathletes and trying to get himself in shape because he's building up a new health technology company. He looks over and he's like, Omri, you're the guy that got a billion downloads of the Medisafe application. He says, you're my hero. And you look back at him and you look at a younger version of yourself. What's the one piece of advice would you give that young Omri at a Buenos Aires cafe restaurant as he starts on his venture?
So I think that it's all about the movement. And I think that while you need to be strategic, you need to move fast and let nothing stop you in the process that you're building, right? So you start building and you just build on top of it and build and let nothing stop you. So that's advice number one. Can I give him 2 advices?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The second one is that it's all about the people that are with you
right.
on the journey.
Look at that. Speaking of people on the journey.
Rotem. How are you doing? Hi, nice to meet you.
Hey, Rotem.
You haven't met Jim, I'm assuming.
Not yet. Hi, Jim.
Pleasure to meet you.
Welcome to the shot. glad you were able to make an appearance in front of our millions of viewers and listeners. No,
Wow.
it's yeah, exactly.
No.
He was just talking about you. He was just talking about you. He's saying, surround yourself with good people was his advice. And then you came in at the right time.
It was magic. So on that note, I think, Omri, you texted me just before, like, do we actually drink on the shot? So I think, for me, it's to 2:15 p.m. here. I think we should drink to at least your 10-year celebration, virtual shot. So that's to you guys. I think building an amazing business. And I think also it's not an easy thing to accomplish what you accomplished with the announcement of the ISO certification, and puts you guys in a whole different bowl game. So kudos again, virtual shot, cheers, and then we're gonna have to we're gonna have to do a real one at some point in time here.
Awesome.
Yes.
So my flight right now.
With that, thank you for joining us both, and to the millions of followers and listeners, hit that subscribe, pass it on, and see you next week.
See you guys.
See you.
See you.